All right, this is the program this morning on ITV. It's now time for our second discussion. Like we told you at the beginning of this program, that we shall be looking at the Abuja-Kaduna Railway attack that happened a week today, yes, where 9 persons have been confirmed dead, and numbers of persons are yet to be confirmed. Their whereabouts is yet to be ascertained, although it's already been established that they were actually adopted after that attack, but the actual numbers of persons adopted has not really been given. We heard that over 300 persons were actually on that train when that attack happened on Monday. Different figures. Initially when it happened, 900. Later on, the government said more than 300. Well, because the manifestos of those passengers was not really, cannot really give the details. Some persons got into those trains without actually well documented. We saw how the ticket racketeering takes place at the Nigerian Railway Corporation, especially for those who are trying to board the train to Kaduna after the road has been taken over by the same bandits. So this morning we shall be looking at our security, and we'll delve into that very incident in the eyes of our security experts. It's always here each time we call on him. Is Jonathan Isaac. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Dominic.
Yeah, let's look at, I normally ask this question, at what point did we get it wrong in our country's history that insecurity has become an issue that every day you wake up in the morning is on the front burner of our newspapers, beyond what it used to be before this very period we are facing now?
All right, that question is very dicey, but to answer it is with a few points. Like, we got it wrong when we start having bad governance, corruption, non-transparent procurement of war equipments. We got it wrong with poor leadership. We got it wrong with the lack of maximization of our budgets, security budgets. We got it wrong when we started having poor defense strategies against terrorism and the non-transparent acts of our security agencies. This is where we got it wrong, and that was what brought us to the worsening nightmare of national politics, economy, and worsening national security issues that we have today. That was where we got it wrong.
But when you look at, like, from what you just established now, for defense strategy, Nigerian Army, let's say Nigerian Armed Forces, is well known worldwide, especially in the Africa and the sub-Saharan here. We saw what they did in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Sudan, and Sierra Leone. Yes, Nigerian military was adjourned one of the best when it comes to ground operation. So why are we still having this problem? Why have we not been able to actually tackle it if we have been performing so? Even the Nigerian police one time ago was adjourned one of the best when they went to Liberia the same day. Why are we still backward when it comes to internal security?
Well, I think this also, my first opening statement, answer most of the issues. Why we are not having it right.
Let's see if maybe it's from the defense side, the military. Are we having some problems getting the right persons to be in the right position?
Of course, all I have analyzed opening is the opening statement. Address all of this that we've said. Number one, corruption came in. So we don't used to have this set of leaders that we are having then. Are you me? People that we are having in leadership position then are people who came in and said, we are Nigerians first. Today, we are not having leaders in that position who can tell you we are Nigerians first. All they want is they want themselves first. If you are practicing the true spirit of a Nigerian, what we should see you do is what benefits the interest of Nigerians. But once you go there to, represent yourself, you no longer represent Nigerians. So corruption came into play. So if you think it was the same police officers we used to have then, it's a no. A no because most of those people have retired. It is not people that went to Liberia as we have again.
But we are still having the same Nigerian army, the same Nigerian
It is not the same people who fought this war that we are having again. It is not the Nigerian police that went to Liberia. It is not the same Nigerian army that went to Liberia that you know. These were not the police who will give out arms to criminals to go rob and return interest to them. These are not the kind of police we were having then. This is not the kind of army that we are having, even where the head of service chiefs will be said to have diverted funds for personal use, funds meant for machineries and all of these equipments have been used for this personal use. We are not having this kind of generals. So people we are having are heroes who came to fight for a true cause. So it is not just about why are we not fighting, why are we not hitting the ground running. It was because of the change in the leadership positions, leadership approach, personnel, and holistically, if you look at it, the change of government as well has contributed to this whole nightmare.
But if you look at the change of government, the persons we have in power have been in power for a very long time. For instance, the president was one time the chief of defense staff of this country, was one time head of state, as a military head of state. During its time, we don't have such kind of security challenge we are having now. Why is it so difficult for them to strategize? This, you said the same, we don't have the same crops of military, but we still have them in power in one way or the other. The Minister of Defense, it was a retired army general.
You see, the truth of the matter is, like I have told you, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari have been at the war front before now.
Yes.
So many Nigerians will expect such personality to, to be one of the best when it comes to security. But unfortunately, what we are having today is recorded one of the worst we've had in recent times in democracy. The truth is that it's not about Buhari as a person anymore. It is about the appointees who are hired for these jobs. So Mr. President needs a very strong political will to say, Mr. A have erred and I've taken him away. That is the areas where Nigerians said for him not to carry out these decisive actions shows that they are all complicit. That is where he's brought him now. Otherwise, it is not all about his person. We have this president that said, I have ordered the former IGP to be in Benue State. The IGP was never in Benue State. There was no consequences. There were no deterrent. So you can imagine where the commander-in-chief happened to give order and another chief said that order does not hold water. So you see, the center is not holding. And that is because, I think, because of the excess rapport at the executive level. That was why we never had these things. Like, when we have these people in power, we are having not under the democracy rule. It's under most of military rule. So the command in the military, of course, is different from the democratic rules. So at this point, he cannot do and undo. At a different quarter, he has to go through some proceedings, through some checks and all of that. But when it comes to security, so many people expect him to take decisions without waiting for all this due process because we are in a crisis situations. Nigeria is an emergency. And we need to do what is needful without minding whether someone has gone to court or someone has gone to this and all of that. So I think it's not just about Buhari as a person. It's about the people. The aloofness and the arrogance of of Mr. President's appointees is even threatening more than the terrorism act we're having today. Because even in the ability security situation, some of them still come out and say His Excellency is doing well. So they have politicized security to a point that even when it's failing, they say it's doing well. But under the military rule, if you fail, the dashboard is already there that you have failed. Nobody is coming to come and be speaking on the media, or you don't have SS coming to talk. If you have failed, they show you the way out.
And that's what Nigerians have been expecting since after the train attack. Somebody would have maybe put his pens down and said, I'm leaving this position. I should be held responsible for this. Let's look at the Kaduna experience, the Kaduna train experience. There were intelligence reports, but nobody acted on them.
You see, you just mentioned intelligence report, and then giving intelligence to a non-intelligent person, how does it work? You just talked about intelligence. So
that's what
intelligence
keep saying. That
intelligence has to be processed.
Nigerian Railway did not respond quickly.
Intelligence has to be processed by an intelligent person. Are you with me? So it is another thing to have an intelligence report, and it's another thing for someone to process it. So you cannot carry an intelligence report to give to a DAF. So you can't just bring mathematics and say use board mass for my son in primary 1, and I say board mass. Maybe that's the first one he's hearing board mass. He will be wondering, Daddy, what is board mass? But I have so much praise him that my son is almighty. So when you talk about the intelligence report, who processed the intelligence? Is the person there equal to the intelligence? So when the person there is rated above, rated Betty above par, and in performance is daft, then what do you expect of that intelligence? A lot of intelligence are suffering in the hands of not intelligent actors. So going fully into the Kaduna train experience is unfortunate. Prior to that attack, there was an attack in Kaduna International Airport. Prior to that attack, there were intelligence by the natives that they saw some persons in large numbers parading themselves on motorcycles into a particular village, into a particular forest. That is an intelligence report that should have been processed. There were never such intelligence. Now, the question is, so saddening is that we have come to a point of a cultural display that when these things happened, we go around, visit the scene of crime, visit the scene of incidents, then try to talk to the victims. We are on top of the situations. We have always been on top of the situations. There's no one day we go under the situations. We don't go beneath. We always stay on top. Are you with me? So it is time for us to go under the situation.
When you go under the situation, what do you mean?
To excavate the situations. We have had people who said the camp of these people are known. You can't be on top. Go there. Go there. Go under there. And let's know what exactly it is.
Why is it taking us this long?
It will take this long as we have people in power who are not, there's no deterrent. They take it as is their retirement benefit. They take it as a compensation for campaigning for somebody maybe in 2015. They take it that it is now their right. Otherwise, the managing director of the National Railway Corporation came up and told Nigerians on a national television and said, as it is, we should keep hope.
Now, that was why I asked the question before.
A hope of what?
What would have happened? In advanced country, we see that a life is
lives were lost.
Yeah.
There are no compensations,
to give
nothing. And somebody said, we should keep hope. We should keep hope. Because your son or your daughter is not involved. We should keep hope because your wives are not involved. But it is far beyond hope. It is not to keep you somewhere. Nigerians, we have so much activists on social media for their own stomach. It is people like us that goes all around and we don't ask people for a penny. But when it is time for this MD to be taken off office, you will see some persons with placards. He has done so well. Even when he said the same thing last year, you will see activists that said this man has done so well because some millions have exchanged hands. But for people like us who tell truth and speak truth to power, we suffer on a daily basis.
So let's stick to the discussion now. What would have been the best way to have averted this situation? Since we've said, we've established the fact that intelligence are not being processed, but are there other ways would have prevented this? We saw a leaked memo from one of our sister media where the government or the Federal Executive Council kept aside the security proposal for security gadgets for the Abuja railway track. What would have been the best solution? Because we saw the attack last year in October 20th. Nothing was done. No perimeter fencing for that area. A couple of policemen attached in the train. But the area, the terrain, nothing has been done so far until this very attack. 2 days after the airport was attacked, was almost attacked. So what would have been the preventive measures for this attack?
Well, I think we have discussed often the problems. Solutions were there, but they were politicized. Like you said, that is just one proposal. There are thousands of proposals on the desk there, unattended to, on how to put security in order. But the question here is, when they were building these rail tracks, the Ministry of Transportation just came up to tell us that he requested for 3.something billion for the security surveillance of this place. Then the question, is it supposed to be now? Is it not supposed to be part of the railway construction projects? When you are constructing rail stations or railways, are there not supposed to be security measures put in place? You give contracts of rail constructions to foreign people that only will construct these rails or these rail tracks in line or with the understanding of their own country, that have never done the survey of our situations here in Nigeria. So they will build that railway according to their own understanding and without supervisions of our experts in this instance. So it is supposed to be that we give our own the contract to handle these rails, that understands that when you are building this rail, he knows that these areas are dead zones, are red zones, and they have to build the perimeter fences at least to see what will be happening. And then on this perimeter fence, there should now be what? Surveillance security. So that if camera A is tempered, they will know from the control room that a camera in this particular region has been tempered. And in each of these tracks, they now know exactly the gadgets to use, that it would be easy to trace or to track when there are security breaches. But here, that was not done. But to come to the one that is practicable, since those areas failed, what happened to the promise of the helicopter that will be used to accompany these trains when they are moving from one destination to another? Are they not complicit? Did they meet up with those promises that helicopters will be used to, do this and do that? We have had cases in Nigeria where you see our army, our police will be fighting, foot soldiers fighting shooting more than 2-3 hours. You will never see any air intervention. At the time they are done, you see the reactive response of our military coming with so much air, helicopters and all of that, just for the show of it. So it is like they are taking Nigerians for granted. And I feel that the families of those people should come up to sue the government, because you ask people to pay for a service. These people pay for service, and instead of you to give them service, you give them disservice that eventually took their lives. And nothing is done, because these trains are not free. You paid for it before you get access. And when you paid for it, what they gave to you, they are not tagging it as unforeseen. It could happen anytime. It could happen anything. That is an accident. An accident is unforeseen. But there were intelligence that are supposed to be processed to avert all of these things. So the family of these people should show the government. Government has to pay, and governments have to tell some heads should roll. When heads begin to roll, people will take it as deterrent, and then it stands as a standard for our officers in the field. Even the personnel that were equally on duty, we have not had any formal notice or formal statement from the Inspector General of Police, aside bringing in trucks and all of that. What is the information? What is the position of your personnel as at the time of these things? Because the witness, the testimony of an eyewitness said, our military, our security pulled off their uniforms when these people started attacking. They pulled off their uniforms.
As those inside the train.
Inside the train. That is the testimony of an eyewitness. That they pulled the uniform and then tried to disguise themselves. And some persons are saying, why? Why wouldn't they pull the uniforms when there is no compensation for this? Is that the kind of the military we used to have? And I get to understand that because of the double standard arrangement permitted, because if it is not permitted, it will not be practiced by the Nigerian Railway Corporations and all of that. You have a manifesto that is complete, that is conflicting. That we have almost now around something passengers. You say it's 360 something passengers. Now, even the manifesto that you are showing, if we say let's go by rate, one person must have booked for almost 3 persons, putting different phone numbers, putting different names, just for him or her to have ticket for those people, which is also another way that could have bridged security aspect of it, because most of these people in those trains could be even informants. Otherwise, how did they get exactly to know the personalities in those trains? They will not just guess. Before a terrorist will strike, they have concrete information of what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So even the staff of this railway corporation has to be checkmated and has to be investigated.
Yeah, but there are also reports that communities where these trains passed were already citing terrorists coming around those areas, just like we talked about the intelligence gathering. They noticed the strange movements of persons within the track. I remember the track, after the first attack, there were reports that the railway transportation should be restricted from evening travels. That was not done. Now, the communities now, what role do you think they can play in areas like this? Is it just intelligence gathering, or should we be employing machineries, those who know the terrain, to assist the government in this fight?
With the situations, talking about generally, with the situations ongoing, insecurity in Nigeria, it is enough for the government to have invited the ECOMOG soldiers. But then, since we could not do that, I think it is high time we call for state police.
Oh, we saw what happened in Borno. Vigilantes were used as part of the force.
We need to now call for state police. Although you cannot use regional security to say that it exists and it functions. Regional security on its own is a threat to national security. That is on the negative aspect of it. But with what we are having today, it is time for us to call for state police. If Kaduna has an independent structure of an existing security architecture, I think they should know how best to police their terrain. But when you have one commissioner of police, one general, that you will have to phone the Inspector General of Police, you as a governor, you will have to phone the Chief of Army Staff before decisions are reached, before these are done in the state. Imagine the time. You have a case at time. We have had a governor who said, I've been calling the Inspector General of Police for him to act. Excuse me, in situations like this, we will still have to wait for Abuja to call. Not until Abuja calls, heaven does not fall. So imagine that a lot of things had gone wrong because we have centralized our security architecture so much that it is only the center that decides what happened. And sometimes even the centers can equally act based on the body language of Mr. President. Like the governor of Benue State, His Excellency Samuel Otom, has accused severally that the government is no longer in favor of the state. So you imagine when things like this start happening, and then you have a face-off with the president. When it happens in your state, it gives a blind eyes to it. When it happens in your own state, because of the political interest in all of these things, it's the reason I called that it is time for us to have state policy, so that we can now come up with what are the things that should be done in a state. Until then, we will not have any response. But if that cannot be done, way forward is what I'm telling you and Nigerians. It is high time His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, the commander-in-chief, indeed, a commander-in-chief, that all of these things are happening before him. I think it is high time for him to call for a national discussion that we now have all the bodies, all the stakeholders, traditional rulers, local intels, all of these bodies, religious leaders, to come in and said, what is the way forward? Since the inception of his administration in 2015, we have never had any discussion, national discussion on the way forward on security.
We'll be having them in state levels.
These are not the truth of the matter is that I have told you that you cannot use regional security to address national security. So not until we have decentralized so much of this security architecture, you cannot act independently as the governor. The chief security of the state is the governor, and the chief security of the state sometimes is at the mercy of the Inspector General of Police, or is at the mercy of the Chief of Army Staff or Defense Staff. So if all these things are not decentralized, you cannot act independently. Indeed, you are the governor, but when it comes to security, that you are supposed to be, on paper you are the chief security. In real practice, you are not the chief security. The chief security are those that decides whether the boys should come on air, the boys should go, or the boys should not go. So you cannot do otherwise. So I think it is high time His Excellency calls for a national discussion. Bring experts. All the stakeholders should come in. This is regardless of party affiliations or religion. Because unfortunately, political parties are taking advantage of what is happening to Nigerians and then said, oh, you can imagine how many people died here. Then the other party will said, no, even the people that died here, they are not compared to the numbers of people that died in the recent time or died in your time. So you can imagine that we are even politicizing the lives of Nigerians, discussing how many numbers should have died, at least to meet up the numbers that when they were in power, or how many numbers should have stayed alive, to not know exactly how they have failed. So insecurity does not know whether you are a Muslim or a brother, or you are a PDP or APC. I think that it is high time he calls for these discussions, so that people who understand what security really means should go. And again, with what is on ground, it's also important that he will rejig the head of the security agencies, because the time we call for the change of service chiefs, It took them so much time before he was able to change the service chiefs. No, sorry, not service chiefs. I mean service chiefs. And when he made these changes with those service chiefs, we got at least results in the first 3-4 months. Unfortunately, those service chiefs, service chiefs.
Please, you have to using that.
Sorry, I mean service chiefs.
As was round of this segment, do you see the government, or is there a possibility that these bandits or terrorists, as they've been called, brought to the table for negotiation if the national dialogue, national discourse we were talking about has not really taken place? Can we engage them in discussion, the bandits themselves?
Well, that is unfortunate step that we have taken and that have brought us where we are today. I have often told the media, even from the days of Sheikh Gumi, canvassing for negotiations with those terrorists, I've always said it. In economics, it's what we call the Cobra effect. This Cobra effect is in your attempts to solve a situation, you worsen it. Because it was in our attempt to solve the situation, we started paying ransom. And it was from this ransom that they used to fortify themselves more. Go in there, bring in all the machineries they want, have the necessary resources to partner with Al Qaeda, have the necessary resources to bring in their informants from ISIS, and buy all the things they want to buy. Have even their own private jets that we have heard before that sorry, let me not to mention name, but someone's private jet was used to take arms to those guys in their camp, and the person's private jet was known. Later on, he said he was never aware that his jet went for that mission.
Well, I must thank you so much for being on the program, Isaac, Jonathan Isaac. Because of time, we might not be able to go beyond here. Well, I will end this segment here, but when TMI comes back, we shall be looking at other issues. This time, the Academic Staff Union of your universities are on a strike, and their sister tertiary institution, as the Polytechnics, also are preparing for another showdown with the federal government. After this break, we shall be looking at those issues.